Good afternoon from a snowy Champaign, Illinois. It's Sunday, January 5th, 2025. You're watching Co-op for Two. Today we're continuing our playthrough of a custom case being written for the channel as we play it. A play-by-mail case set in the world of New York Noir. Written by Matt C., who's in the chat. In fact, let me just check in with the chat, make sure everything's going okay. We've got a healthy group here today. 20 concurrent viewers, 3 likes. 3 of you have clicked the like button. Before we get into today's case, let's do a little bit of bookkeeping. We've been busy on the channel. We recently, on Friday, I believe, finished our 6th and final session of Razorhurst Blood Alley, the free print and play epic long case written by John Keane, the follow-up to his original original Razorhurst, which we played several years ago. Another very successful, very enjoyable, deep, serious game. And then yesterday afternoon, I finished up playing Star Trek Cryptic, which I started out. It's 3 chapters. We played 2 chapters a week ago, and I was really looking forward to recommending it, giving it a full-throated recommendation. And the last session we played was not quite as good, so my review on that will be a little bit mixed. And then a little bit before that, I played Wealth of Murder from Hunt a Killer, which is my favorite Hunt a Killer yet. So I've got a bunch of reviews to record in the coming days, and I've been live streaming a lot over the last month, maybe 2 months. That's going to go down a little bit. I'm going to try to finish up reviewing all the games we've played, and then the live streaming schedule will return to a more normal level as I get back to working on New York Noir coding stuff and writing more features. And there'll be a tutorial on using the casebook language to write a New York Noir case. So if this setting and material is appealing to you from the standpoint of writing a case of your own, please do consider joining us, getting involved, writing a case. Anna, one of our chief detectives here, has been writing cases. She's working on her second case. Debbie has helped editing it. Rob in the channel hasn't been helping Anna yet, but Rob is available to help with documents, and I'm available to help with using the tools and directories and etc. So anyway, look forward to more updates on that. I am also going to record a best games of 2024 that we've played on the channel, so keep your eye open for that. Okay, any other bookkeeping to do before we get started? Matt says this will have 1 or 2 more letters after this, and then the case will wrap up. We're going to talk about the last letter we got, which was pretty shocking. But is there anything else to talk about in the chat? Any other projects people are up to that we want to talk about before we jump in here? Guess it's kind of silly to ask questions because of the long delay on YouTube. You guys know you have to just start talking about your hobbies as soon as you join the channel, not wait for me to ask. All right, then let's get to it. The last letter we got, this will be the 4th letter we've received, but the last letter really blew things wide open, because up until the first 3 letters were like, we have this client, he's got the first 2 letters. We have a client, he's got a card game that he thinks people are cheating on in some weird way. Maybe they're doing a little weird thing with the stock market, although it doesn't seem all that weird. Then the last letter we got last week, everything changed. We had a full arson, 2 dead bodies, and the dead bodies were the people, the guy, Hamoud, that our client has been feuding with, and our client has been arrested, Michael Lant. And in fact, we got a little sniff, a little whiff that he was being investigated in the previous letter. This NYPD financial crimes cop or homicide cop was snooping around, asking about him. We didn't know what that was about. Then all of a sudden, here we've got the arson. Not only is Hamoud dead, but his wife is dead. Clearly arson. And our guy, Michael Lant, has been arrested. Huge development. All of a sudden, we've got a much more serious case on our hands. And we had some interesting observations about the scene of the arson that were kind of cool, and I want to talk about them quickly. And the other little piece of this case that's been so fun is I think we've all sort of fallen in love with Alice Wiggins, the 15-year-old daughter of Bill Wiggins, who we've been sending around. She is clearly our favorite. It's really fun to get her replies. So Wiggins goes to the funeral of the arson victim, Hamoud, who's got in a feud with our client, Michael Lant, through some very trivial matter. The 2 of them have ended up in a feud. He sees the Hamoud's son, Victor, speaking. Remember, Hamoud is working for a life insurance, so there's always the possibility of life insurance scam going on. He notes a couple people who showed up that maybe we should investigate. We decided, well, I'll go to what we decided to do in a minute. When I was rereading it, I wanted to point out something. You know, film noir has some tropes, but I guess maybe all tropes have this flavor where they're sort of a mix of, it's a little bit of, you see the trope in a certain genre and you're like, okay, you're leaning on a trope, but on the other hand, they become things that bring you some enjoyment out of seeing. And I did want to mention here that we didn't comment on this at the time, but here's a really nice film noir vibe. You've got different settings. We've got the Victorian Sherlock Holmes consulting detective, and there's certain things that happen there that make us feel like we are in that time period. And film noir has a very different feel to it. There are certain things that sort of give you pleasure to watch play out, and certain languages and stuff that make you feel like you're in the time. I really like this little touch here where Wiggins is telling us about our client being arrested, Michael Lant, right? And look what he says. I believe it's our obligation to see this investigation through. Lant did pay us up front, after all, but regardless, it's not sitting right with me. To me, that is that's like one of those lines that makes you feel like you're in a film noir movie. Like, it doesn't sit right with him. Like, there's been some injustice, or there's been something that's like, we've got this honor code, and it's not sitting right with us that our client has been arrested. Like, is he guilty or not? I don't know, but we've got our allegiances here. So this is our case now, for better or worse, whether the money runs out or not. We're in this. We're going to see this through to the end. So then he gives us a little rundown of our bills so far based on sending people around. And then here's Alice. Listen to Alice. I see how it is, sending the young lady to talk to all the women. I'll have you know I'm quite capable of taking on the most dangerous crooks in the city, despite what my dad thinks. He heard about that incident with the trenchcoat man, got really upset. I chased him, but he seemed more upset about the coffee because Alice sat in with someone and had a coffee. Good news is I got a lot out of this one. So anyway, we're all in love with Alice. So Alice follows up. She runs some lines on this stockbroker, telephone operator to convince her to give up stuff. She convinces her to get more information. She's like, I want to be a phone stock person someday. And she goes, listen to this line from her. She goes, the woman tells her, gives her a little bit of information. Alice says, lures her in. I bet you know all about the stock market. And then I love this little line. Where's her little line? So the woman, Margaret, Leighton, who runs the phone, tells her a little bit, and Alice goes, there has to be more to it than that, ma'am. I really believe that. And she just sort of gets the woman to confess a little bit more insider information than she should, although we didn't fully understand this part. She says, sometimes what we say isn't what we know. And I think the channel was theorizing what she meant by that is maybe the information that the traders are talking about on the phone, maybe they tell the operators a little more than that. We didn't fully understand that. And then we get the scene of the arson, 2 dead bodies. So I wanted to point out a couple things here. One that we noticed at the time that I really loved, right or wrong, and then something else that came up in the Discord later. So 160 Front Street, that's the scene of the arson. We get described it a little bit. It's clearly arson. Gas canisters or rope may be used as a fuse. We've got some footprints, a playing card that the cops have left because they took the real playing card that was found on the scene. When we saw this, we said, we think they're framing Michael Lant. That's how I read it, and I think that's how most of us read it. Like, that was our conclusion, that they're probably trying to frame Michael Lant. And maybe for a long time, they may have been planning to frame Michael Want. But we think that this card is going to come back from the card game and have Michael Want's fingerprints on it. Now, it didn't occur to us at the time, but it did occur to someone in the Discord, and I think it's worth considering whether this isn't a case of switched out bodies. Now, whenever you have an arson, you've got the possibility of someone trying to hide evidence or hide the means of death, etc. Now, someone would have to be very serious because they've killed 2 people, presumably a man and a woman. And we tried to look up an arson fire department. I'm not sure we followed through on that. I think we did in our request. I'll look at that in a second. But it didn't occur to us at the time that these could be planted bodies. Maybe Hamoud is on the run, but we didn't see any sign that he would need to. So if I had to put money, I would guess this really is the body of Mr. and Mrs. Hamoud, and that we think Hamoud might be involved in some insider trading. Maybe one of his partners decided he had to be silenced and killed him, and they're going to get rid of 2 birds with 1 stone, kill off Michael, get Michael Want arrested for the crime. So I suspect that we're going to find Michael Want's fingerprints on this card that someone has left at the scene. A little too coincidental. I'm a little suspicious of Jimmy Cunningham, who's Michael Want's friend, who we haven't talked to yet, but we sent someone to talk to today. The other part that I really liked, this was a pretty cool moment. I'm not sure if we're right, but we had this scene. Now, who did we send here? Roger Vernon. He's sort of our workhorse detective that we've been sending. He says, I looked at the taped off footprints for a few minutes, took off my shoe, leaned over to compare it. Going by the difference, I would say the print is a size 9 or 10. I also noticed the dirt surrounding but not under the footprints was disturbed, possibly by the police, but there were no visible prints anywhere else. Okay, this was a really nice detail, and I'll tell you how what I think we came to. I forget who came to it exactly, but I remember we were chewing on this a bit. So I suspect someone's trying to frame Michael Want. So I suspect that 9 or 10 is going to fit Michael Want's shoe. Now, you could wear, if someone else was trying to frame Michael Want, maybe you get his shoes or a pair of shoes of his size and wear them. And we thought, okay, what about this disturbed air? It's a little odd. The dirt surrounding but not under the footprints was disturbed. So we thought about that. We thought about, well, could you be dragging the gas canisters? Is that what that's describing? And then we came up with a pretty cool idea, which I really liked, which is this idea of someone walking, planting the 9-10 size footprints, planting the evidence, and then covering up the dirt where their footprints were. I really like that idea. I don't know if it's right, but there is something very satisfying about a detective noticing that, yeah, there aren't more footprints, but someone has wiped away footprints. So I really like that little subtle idea, if it's true or not. Now, something I noticed when I was rereading, I realized that we haven't followed up on. We keep seeing this guy Kenter, who's sort of the muscle for the big banks. And in fact, if you had to pick one person who's most suspicious for us, I think it's Hartman, who's a big shot at Chase, an investment guy. And he's the guy who first brings in one of our previous letters, the security muscle who looks a little suspicious, Kenter. And now Kenter has been loaned off to this other company where Hamoud worked. And one of the things I realized is we haven't sent someone to talk to Kenter. And I wonder if that would be useful. Like someone could even try to tail him. We could see if he is actually an up and up security guy, or is he involved in some underworld stuff? I mean, I don't think he's going to talk to us, and it's going to be hard to catch him doing anything, but it did occur to me that maybe we should try to send someone to visit Kenter. We've got this alcoholic cop who's never doing us much good, but maybe sending him after Kenter wouldn't be a bad idea. Harry says a 9 or 10 shoe is pretty common. Yeah, I do. Well, you could look at it two ways. 9 or 10 is a pretty common size for a man. But if it's not Michael Lont's size, then, or if the person doing it is not Michael Lont's size, then it's significant. Or maybe they actually got one of his shoes. I don't know where they would get that. Okay, so that's that. And then we sent our alcoholic cop, who sort of fumbled things again. Had a long discussion with the homicide detective, but started off good. Then the homicide detective brings out the bottle of liquor, and before you know it, our guy has got nothing. All right, so that was letter 3, including the newspaper article in the Wall Street Journal about the fire and arson. Now, what did we ask to be done? Looking at our replies here. Okay, so we finally called in our $2 a lead pro, who we've not been using so far. And we said, okay, used to be a cop, I think. We said, okay, you got to get into Michael Lant in jail and talk to him. We figured it's time to bring out the big guns. There's been a murder. Now it's serious. So we'll pay his fees. Get in and talk to Michael Lant, get his whereabouts for an alibi. So we're proceeding on a 2-track approach to save Michael Lant. One is alibis for Michael Lant on the Michael Lant side, and the other is who else would want to harm Hamoud. So get his alibi, get his whereabouts. If our theory is right, that he's being framed, get his shoe size, where he was during the fire. Has anyone taken anything of yours? If they're going to plant stuff, they wouldn't have to plant the cards because they would get them in the card game, we think. But maybe they would take a shoe or whatever, and then ask him who would benefit from getting rid of you. I mean, we have a theory about that. If he's investigating this, maybe that's enough reason to get rid of him. And then we also said, okay, we sent the drunk alcoholic to talk to the homicide cop. He didn't get anywhere, but this guy's not going to be pushed around as much. So we said, you go talk to Alexis Cohen if you can. Try to get more information about what evidence they have against him. And then we know that the cop was investigating Michael Lant before the fire. I suspect that whoever's trying to frame him already started anonymously leaking information that would put him under suspicion. So I wanted our guy here to see if he couldn't get any information from the cop about who's been putting Michael Lant under suspicion. Why was Michael Lant under suspicion by the cops before the arson? There must have been something else he was suspected of. And then our guy that we use for most stuff, we said, go to Irving Trust, find out about Michael Lant and his business. Okay, so Irving Trust is where Michael Lant, our client, works. We haven't been to his business yet. And then Ben Jansen was one of the other people who was at the funeral and I guess was one of the guests. Is that right? I think he's one of the guests at the card game that we've not bothered to investigate yet, but then he also showed up at the funeral. So he said, all right, let's talk to him, see what he knows. And then we said, the alcoholic cop, you can stay home. We don't need you. Alice, we sent to talk to Jimmy Cunningham, who I'm a little nervous about. Michael Lant says he's his friend, but Michael Lant looped him into his suspicions. And that makes me concerned. Like, Michael Lant goes to Jimmy Cunningham, his friend, and he says, hey, I think Hamoud and Hartman are cheating. Let's look into their stock trades. And Jimmy helps out with that. He gives him some stock ticker stuff. A little worried, like, has Michael Lant inadvertently told one of the guys who's running it, the scam, that he's suspicious? And is Jimmy Cunningham leading him down the path of harm? So I'm a little nervous about sending Alice. But this guy, Jimmy Cunningham, plays the nice guy. So even if he is the mastermind, he's not going to harm Alice. But we'll see what Alice gets out of him. And then for Wiggins, we gave, Wiggins is more involved in this now that there's been a murder. So we asked for his general help. Help tracking down Victor Hamoud's son, ask who might want to harm his parents, ask whether his father was having financial problems, just the normal stuff you ask when someone gets killed. And then we said, okay, maybe find him at his work. And then maybe we should find out what Victor is up to, because there may be a big insurance payoff for his family, his father getting killed. And then we said, look, if you can't go, spend the money on the big shot. And then we asked him to talk to his contacts to find out about the card, whether there were fingerprints on it, and maybe shoe prints. This is our theory that Michael Lant's being framed. So try to find out what they've got. And then we gave him we gave him the address of the arson lab, NYPD arson investigation lab, to find out if there's anything else maybe at the scene of the arson that we don't know about. I do wish we had asked our alcoholic cop to track down Kenter. You might expect that Kenter would be the guy they would use to do the arson. If that theory is right, that Kenter is not just a security guard, but the muscle who might be tasked with doing illegal stuff, I wonder if Kenter would have been the guy who would actually perform the arson. That's an interesting idea. We may want to try to follow up on that. Certainly, we're not going to be sending Alice to him, though. But maybe the alcoholic beat cop would be the one to go for that. All right, let's see if I missed anything, if anyone wants to add anything. Talk about Alice. I think it would be nice to have some New York Noir case starring Alice. Kenter should not be approached directly. Following him could be useful. Yeah, I agree with that. And if we can see anything at the scene of the crime that would tie us to Kenter. All right, so that's where we are, 25 minutes in. Let's read our new letter. I haven't even gotten today's letter. We've just been doing recaps, but that's how we do it. All right, so we've got a nice, serious letter here. Let's see what we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, it looks like. All right, here we go. Get ourselves set up here. Just have some coffee. I have not been getting enough sleep lately. Oh, that's good. I'm drinking this Mexican Chiapas from a local roaster called Mad Goat. You can order online from them. I highly recommend their coffee. The Mexican Chiapas is good. The Papua New Guinea is good. And if you like decaf, or if you want to like decaf, they've got a Mexican decaf that's really good. Okay. Here we go. Bill Wiggins. Dear Mr. Reichler, great job this week. Our team delivered. Remember, we're going to need proof. Proof of the means, motive, and opportunity of the real killer, and a solid alibi for Lant. We'll also need some resolution of the Lant-Hamoud feud that could help restore his reputation. I made some calls to American Family Insurance and found out Hamoud's son Victor is staying at the West Street Hotel. He arrived in town a day before the funeral. As meant, a day before the funeral, okay, but not a day before the arson. As mentioned, I haven't been available for field work, but there's still time to send an investigator this week if needed. I have a couple of quick reports from the NYPD labs. I called my contacts in forensics and arson and received the following info. Fingerprints. A King of Hearts playing card was discovered at the scene. Fingerprints on the card match Michael Lont. No other fingerprints were detected. 100% they're trying to frame our guy. 100%. Shoe prints. Size 9 shoe prints discovered at the scene, recovered matching shoes at the Lont home. 100% they're trying to frame our guy. Or our guy is guilty. But you're not leaving a playing card with your fingerprint. 100% he's being framed. Okay, glass forensics, window broken from outside with a hammer, just confirming it's arson. Gas canisters, arson unidentifiable. We had a theory that maybe we could trace down those gas cans. We looked for maybe a hardware store that might be in the neighborhood, but it seemed too big a long shot. Apparently, even the arson team couldn't identify where they're from, so that seems like... we did ask about the hardware store, but look, the rope. Closest hardware stores to crime scene that sell matching flammable rope. Hardware and Lumber, Craftsman Supply, J.M. Kohlheimer Hardware, Lower East Side Hardware Shop. That's interesting. We may want to follow up on that. In fact, surely we want to follow up on that. We thought about that. We actually identified a couple hardware stores, but here Wiggins has been nice enough to narrow it down for us. This is something that you would imagine the arson lab might have contacts, might be able to get this information, and they did. There's something else you might want to keep in mind. The recent panic over the stock market. The market has dropped significantly over the past several days. October 23rd, okay. The market has dropped significantly over the past several days. So I know this happened in September and bounced right back, so I shouldn't jump to conclusions. But I'm thinking I'll pull out the few shares I do own tomorrow. I suppose you're still holding on to that old taxi share? The chaos could make our investigation more challenging. We may miss our chance to uncover what's happening. Let's get one or more round of leads and get to the bottom of it next week. Up to you how much money you want left over for profit. All right, that's pretty cool. The taxi share they're talking about is a taxi share that we got in our first game, the first improv case that Matt wrote for us last year. And here's our balance. We've got a lot. Most of our money is, balance $10. All right, so we've spent through half of it. Looks like Jackie Hardboil cost us $4. 25% of our 20% of our entire amount, but we'll see if it's worth it though. All right, lots of good stuff here. Lots of good stuff. They're fully framing him. And then this we'll want to follow up. Maybe we start, we don't have a system of annotating these in a way that's useful. I wonder if this would be useful. Like, let's have a new system. I'm going to use a big F when we read something that we think needs action taken on it. Follow up. Let's follow up with these stores, because what we would be looking for is a clerk that remembers someone who recently purchased this, right? That would be huge for us. And in these days, the guy running the hardware store, like, that's his life. He's there. He knows all his regular customers. He could very well remember some big giant guy who came in and bought something unusual. So that's a good follow-up. And this is our framing theory. And then Wiggins also he's got some experience with Sherlock Holmes. He's giving us a reminder of what we need to do here. We need proof, means, motive, opportunity, and we need an alibi. And he wants an explanation to the feud between Lant and Hamoud. The feud started over Lant borrowing a little bit of money and missing a payment, remember? We think. Although you could imagine if those bodies aren't of Hamoud, that Hamoud had this whole plan right from the start to like make sure everyone knew he was in a feud with this guy and then stage his own death. I think what I said last time, though, holds. If you're going to stage your own death and have an arson and burn up your bodies, you don't stage it as an arson and try to pin the blame on someone. That would be a very poor way to get away with faking your own death, right? Because if you stage an accidental fire that kills you and your wife, then there's a good chance the arson investigators are going to come in there, going to say, it was an accident, he's dead, it's done. But if you try to frame some innocent guy, he's going to have a defense attorney. They're going to try to investigate it. He's going to fight it because he's innocent. So if you want to fake your own death, you do not try to frame someone for arson. So it's got to be more than that. All right, Alice, here we go. Dear Mr. Riker, I paid Jimmy Cunningham a visit on Saturday. He's a friend of our client, so I just showed up and asked to have a chat about the case. He actually lives right around the corner from the Lants in the same building. Oh boy, here we go. Remember I said I was suspicious of him? Who would have the opportunity to steal his shoes? Right? It's not just his size. Let me make sure we got that right. Matching shoes. Recovered matching shoes. This is key. It's not just that they've got... I believe we're going to have to ask Wiggins for clarification, but I don't think it's saying just that the size matches. I wish Wiggins was more clear. Are we being told that the shoe print matches, that these are actually shoe prints from that matches the Lant home, or just that the size matches? The way I read it is that it's not just that the size matches, but it actually matches a pair of shoes. Okay, because I think now we've got a suspect who had opportunity to steal shoes. Okay, this guy Jimmy Cunningham. Okay, the friend. Let's see. He actually lives right around the corner from the Lants in the same building. My dad said New York Plaza is just a name for the complex near the southern tip of Manhattan. But I eventually found the entrance to his building at the corner of Whitehall and South Street. I felt like paying Mrs. Lant another visit, but Dad said one lead per week. Frustrating. Anyway, it was a large building. I rang the buzzer for 2E and made my way upstairs. When I opened the door, his eyes bulged for a moment before he collected himself. Sorry, I just wasn't expecting a young lady. Come on in. He seemed friendly, but reeked of cologne. So I took my last breath of fresh air and I followed him inside. He seemed a little preoccupied on the walk over to his dining room table, like he was looking for something. Can I get you anything? Coffee? No, thanks, I said, regretfully, because her father has told her no more coffee. Well, you really are young to be doing this kind of thing. Do your parents know where you are right now? He asked, while pouring himself a cup. You bet. I actually got my dad to walk across town last week to pick me up. I pretended I was lost and asked this lady a lot of questions. Pretty smart, huh? He chuckled a bit. Sure is. I suppose you know what you're doing. So you're Michael's best friend, right? I asked. I was hoping you could help us prove his innocence. You know all those card players, right? Would any of them want to hard the Hamoods? This guy is my number. I'm so glad that I took the time before we started playing to put suspicion on Jimmy Cunningham, because I feel it now. He joined me at the table and sighed a bit. No, I've been over this a lot in my head. Hartman, Kimmel, Carrier, we're all friends. I know Michael's my friend and I trust him. I don't know. I've been worried about Michael for a while. He's been neglecting his family, obsessed with Hamoud, and at odds with everybody else in the game. Felt like I was his last friend left. When I saw the headline, I'm ashamed to say it, it lined up in my mind. Sometimes we have to find acceptance in situations like this. I just don't want to believe it. He had his issues with Hamoud, but arson? Hey, what are you, a quitter? Michael's your friend. Don't give up on him yet. Based on what I've seen, I know he didn't do it. Call it my detective instinct. He looked a little irritated at first, but softened. I'm sorry, you're right. He shook his head in disgust with himself. He's my friend, and I know in my heart he didn't do it. I'm glad you came. If there's anything else I can answer, please let me know. I have a lot of connections on the exchange. Michael said you both use hand signals at the stock exchange. He thinks maybe there's some kind of secret message in the card game. Jimmy laughed a bit. No, that's unlikely. I never took it all that seriously when Michael mentioned it to me, but I never make him feel foolish. First of all, there's no point. All they'd have to do to send a message is be the last two people out the door and have a chat. That would be a big waste of time. I'll still give you the basics of hand signals. He went on about hand signals for a really long time. Basically just explained what all the different hand signals mean on the trading floor. I think he could tell he was losing me and pivoted. Hey, about that clever scheme of yours last week, who did you end up talking to? Maybe I know them. One of the phone operators, actually. She said she was a good friend of yours. He smiled. That doesn't narrow it down much. I've got lots of friends. It's how I make myself valuable to the bank. And I'm very good at it. Sometimes a small gift or a sincere compliment goes a long way. I bet you spoke to Maggie. She's a bit of an oversharer. She probably told you about AT&T, too. Do you know anything about that? I asked. Well, as you can see, it's been dropping all week. I think Maggie knows something about it. She spends a few seconds longer than she should on the phone talking to old friends, but everybody loves her. You will remember that Margaret Layton, who Alice talked to, did mention she was friends with Cunningham, and here he is confirming it, trying to get a little information from Alice about whether Margaret told her anything. Although he is admitting it here. She probably told you about AT&T too. All right, let's continue. Anyway, Jimmy looked at his watch. I have to get going, having some company over. I bet you learned a lot today. Good for you. Breaking boundaries. Very smart young woman. If you need help later following up with anything at the stock exchange, let me know. I'll check it out and write back. Anything for Michael. With that, Jimmy walked me downstairs to the door. I know you said he was Michael's friend, so I kept an open mind, but this guy was kind of insufferable. He really loved the sound of his own voice. I think he just wanted someone to brag to. This was the least fun week of all 3 leads. I shouldn't have complained last week. On the way back, I figured I'd circle over to Water Street in case the trenchcoat man was around, but I actually bumped into Mrs. Lant walking out of her front door holding her baby. Alice, what are you doing here? Oh, I was just visiting Jimmy, Mrs. Lant. I'm sorry about everything that's happened. We're trying to help your husband. Oh, thank you, she said. It's funny you mentioned Jimmy. I'm actually on my way to see him. He offered to watch Susan again while I visited Michael at the precinct. Said he needed to talk about something and wanted me to go over there. How well do you know Jimmy? I asked. Mrs. Lott thought for a moment. It's not a good time to talk about this. I'm in a hurry. Thanks again for your help, Alice. Please just help Michael. I know he hasn't been around, but he's a good person. He cares about us. Please help him. I'm sorry. She wiped away some tears and took off. These people are weird. Sincerely, Alice. Well, I'm sure the same thing has just occurred to you that's occurred to me. I mean, 100% Jimmy Cunningham is our guy. 99%. Perry says he might be a red herring. But Melissa has said the same thing that occurred to me from that scene. Something may be going on with Michael Lott's wife and Jimmy Cunningham. That feels quite likely. And Debbie says, yep, I think we just got our motive. I think we may have a double motive here. Well, first for the stock investment stuff, but I think Jimmy Cunningham may be coveting Mrs. Lott, and in fact, they may have already had an affair. They know each other, they know where they live, they visit. It also gives Jimmy Cunningham an opportunity to get into the house to get stuff because he knows when the wife is away. Offered to watch Susan again. And she gets a little cagey when we ask her how well she knows him. I think we may have an affair or a past affair going on. Yeah. As being pointed out, Debbie reminds us Mrs. Lott was complaining about her husband neglecting her. Yep. Also, Jimmy knew about the life insurance policy Michael took out. Melissa said he's watching someone else's child. That's not normal for men at that time. Well, it's certainly true. It does also tell us that he's home a lot during the day, although I don't know if this is a weekend or not. Anna agrees Jimmy Cunningham looks pretty guilty. I feel good about fingering him before we got this letter. That's a good... But I don't think Mrs. Lott is involved in framing her husband. She seems genuinely concerned, but that doesn't mean she didn't have an affair with Jimmy Cunningham. Debbie, can you remind me when we knew that Jimmy took out when did Jimmy know that Michael took out a life insurance policy? Not that that really seems to matter. He's not trying to kill him. Kirsten says, I'm not sure about affair. She seems genuinely concerned for Michael. But maybe he's coercing her. I don't... Macon Larry says he might mind his own child then. That's interesting. Debbie says, well, he might be executed for murder, but then he wouldn't get the money anyway. The wife would get the money. So I don't think the insurance is going to be a main thing. I do want to go on record. I do agree that Mrs. Lott seems genuinely concerned. Please help Michael. But that doesn't mean she didn't slip up and have an affair in the past. Yeah, Jimmy Cunningham is surely our number one suspect, and Alice picked out that he was talking weird. All right, let's keep reading. We'll come back to it. Here's Roger Vernon, our sort of workhorse. Dear Mr. Reichler, I visited Irving Trust Bank this week to learn more about Lott. I'm not exactly a finance expert, but I asked the front desk if I could speak to someone about stocks. The line was out the door. I was introduced to Carl Weiser, a stockbroker who has worked with Michael. I'm hoping you can help me, I said. I'm an investigator trying to understand what happened with that arson and if Michael Want's job at the bank could be related. Can you tell me about what he did, who he worked with? It's a sensitive subject, Mr. Vernon. We're all a bit shook up here at the bank, but I'll try to assist. Our bank provides staff who serve as brokers and operators at the New York Stock Exchange. Our close proximity has made us a valuable supplier of talent for the exchange. Michael's job was mainly placing trades between buyers and sellers and connecting interested parties. Most of us are doing the same thing, but we've developed relationships through our networks. Networks are the lifeblood of a stockbroker's success here on Wall Street. I don't know Michael's work personally, but if the police provide a warrant, I could take you up to his office. That's all right, I said. Thank you for your help. I left and took a short walk down the street to Capital Growth Investment. Another long line. It was actually right next door to the Financial District Precinct. They got me right in with Jansen. That's the one of the guests who sat in with the card game, another investor, I guess. Hello, Mr. Jansen. I'm Roger Vernon, a private investigator for Michael Want. You likely already spoke to the police. I'm hoping you can help. We think they've got the wrong guy. Do you know anything? Oh, happy to help. I don't think you'll have much luck. I was at the card game the night before the arson and saw Want glaring at Hamoud. When I heard Hamoud was killed shortly after, I went right next door, told the police what I saw. The detective interviewed me later, but I don't know Want very well. I don't usually get to go to that card game, but I finally got an invite from Carrier. It was a lot of fun, but I feel awful for the Hamouds. I'm praying for their son. Seems like Jansen's visit to the NYPD got them thinking about Want. He didn't have much else to add. All right, well, not much from Roger Vernon today, but we don't think that's we don't think he's involved or doing anything, so that's good to clarify that. Let's see. The affair would have to be current for them to conspire in arson. Oh, I don't think they conspired. I don't think the wife is involved in the arson. I just think Jimmy is trying to get rid of him. In fact, it seems more likely that they had a one-time fling, and then she said, I can't continue with this. I love my husband. And he's like, I got two problems. One is Michael Want is investigating into some illegal trades that I may be benefiting from. And if I get rid of him, I can get the wife. Maybe he even likes the daughter. And he's like, this is my new family. He's a single guy. He wants Michael Want's life. Okay. And we've got our first letter here from our hard-boiled detective, our top experienced detective who we've never used before. So this is kind of exciting. Here we go. Where's my tea? And I'm drinking out of my Co-op for Two mug, which was created by Eric, who made these custom cards for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. He posted them on Board Game Geek. You can get them, and made an extra card for me. Okay, here we go. I'm excited to hear from this guy. $2 a lead it cost us for this guy. He's got a P.O. box. That's a pro. Dear Mr. Reichler, pleasure to make your acquaintance. I got your leads from Wiggins. I can do 2 a week. That's it. No cigar if you got 3. They say I'm the best, that I'm thorough. I'll let you be the judge. Monday morning, Wall Street. It was a cold, foggy morning, and my cat needed its litter box refilled, if you catch my drift. That's how it goes. I was walking through the front door of the Financial District Precinct. All the boys who knew me there were there. Carl, Sam, Eddie, the whole lot. Just took a couple smokes and my card to get in the back room. There he was, your boy, the one they say likes to start fires. I'll give you the back and forth. Jackie Hardboil, private investigator. Seems you ran into some trouble, and I'm here to get the facts. The real facts, not the quick ones. If they set you up, I'll get to the bottom of it. Otherwise, tough break, kid. Thank God, you've got to help me. Everyone thinks I started that fire, Want said in awe. I've got some questions for you. I'll ask them one at a time. The more straight your answer is, the more help I'm going to be. Stick to the facts, you understand? Yes, sir. First question, where were you on the night of Friday, October 8th, after your card game, and who were you with? The other table was already cleared out, so it was me, Hamoud, Sawyer Hartman, Ben Jansen, the bartender, and some guy asleep at the bar. That's our guy. Carrier also stuck around to collect the scores. It was Deja Vu week, so we had the same tables as the week before. Carrier has some kind of system. We finished up around 10. Keep going, Mr. Want. What happened next? Well, I was upset that I lost to Hamoud again, so I left first. I went straight to my office at Irving Trust Bank. I've been investigating Hamoud, and I was a bit stirred up. I wanted to get back there and keep digging. Okay, so already gone is Jimmy Cunningham. He was at another table. They had already left. Walk me through the route you took from the tavern to your office. Did you encounter anyone else at all? I walked out the door to the corner of Broad Street and Pearl Street, headed north on Broad Street. There were a couple people out walking, but I wasn't too focused on what they looked like. I saw a guy take out his trash on the right, a block or two before the police station. Didn't see any cops out front. It was late. The front door to Irving Trust Bank is on Wall Street. You just take a right and the door's right there. I have an office on the second floor. There isn't anyone there on Friday nights. Most people go home for the weekend. I just went straight to my office, flipped on the light, dug through a bunch of new ticker tape Jimmy dropped off for me. I was there all night and fell asleep at my desk. And what's your shoe size? Are you missing any shoes? Missing shoes? I haven't really checked. I'm a size 9. I have 3 pairs. Only been wearing 1 pair for a while. They're all at home. We have a closet near the front door. And who has access to your home, Mr. Want? Think carefully. No, just my wife. Want thought for a minute. Actually, we did give Jimmy our spare key in case we got locked out. Why are you so interested in my shoes and keys? Stick to the answers, Mr. Want. All of this is helping our case. The next question is critical. I want you to think about who would have a motive to frame you or eliminate Mr. Hamoud. Well, Kimmel could have found out I investigated him. He's the only person I can think of. You said the only 2 people with access to your home were your wife and Mr. Cunningham. What about them? That's ridiculous. He's got my wife and I love each other. I know I should have been around more, but she wouldn't hurt anyone. Jimmy, no, he's been helping me. Yeah, in what ways? Please be specific, Mr. Want. Well, he told me about the rumors Hamoud was spreading about me. He encouraged me when everyone else doubted me. He's been making copies of ticker tape for me to study after work. He encouraged me when I was ready to give up and didn't judge me when I went as far as writing to a world-famous detective over a card game. Well, we've got our man now, and we were on to him early. Well, today, before we started reading, which feels very satisfying. Okay, here's our last page. About that, seems petty you'd hire a private investigator to uncover cheating in a card game. You also notably left out your feud with Hamoud in your first letter to Wiggins. Only talked about the card game. Would you care to explain this? Huh? I didn't want the detective's judgment to be clouded by mine. I was so angry at Hamoud, but I wanted to know the truth, not just what I wanted to hear. I realized now it was never just about the card game, however interesting that might be on its own, but about reputation. I should have just mentioned it in the first letter. I'm sorry. It was an oversight. I'll put more thought into it next time. Next time, I shrugged it off and closed my notebook. Mr. Lant, if what you've told me today is the complete truth, I believe we're on the right track. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Just that I'm very sorry for the Hamoods. I was upset, but I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I never wanted any of this. I should have been home with my family instead of lost in this conspiracy. My work here was done. I exited the place and grabbed a dog on my way to Chelsea. Mustard relished sauerkraut. And they threw in half a pickle. If I was going to get this possum back to his banjo, I'd need the whole pickle. I walked up the familiar steps of NYPD homicide and shook a lot of clammy hands. I let myself upstairs and knocked on Cohen's door. He was pleasantly surprised to see me. Jackie? Alex? I need a favor, I told him. I pulled out a lighter and lit each of us a spud. I need to know the name of your key witness in the Lant case, the one who told you about Wiggins. You know I can't do that, Jackie. You've got the wrong squirrel, Alex. He's not holding the nuts. Remember Queens, 26? I'm calling it in. He scoffed. I do owe you for that, but Jackie, if you're right, just make sure you nail whoever did it. Deliver them to me so I can spin it. The mayor's on my ass and I need this one closed. It's the co-worker, Cunningham. He gave me the motive, a timeline, and a list of witnesses to back it up. Everything checks out. Bingo. All right. How good was that? So let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to crow a little bit about this, because this letter obviously blows the whole case out of the water and really cements our guy. But what was particularly satisfying is that we had, it's on the record, you can rewind the tape. I had my strong suspicions about Cunningham, and everything we read from the start to the finish slowly crept up to confirm our thoughts. And we sent the right people to the right places to nail down. Now, what's interesting is, what's particularly satisfying, I guess, what's interesting is we really did not suspect Cunningham at all until we did sort of the recap of last week. And then I started getting a feeling like, is that what we've got here? Have we got his best friend pretending to be his best friend and manipulating him and being more involved? And we can't take credit for coming up with that theory early and sending people to clarify it, but we did pick the right moment to send our pro in, and he called in his favors, and we asked him particularly who, we were being clever. We said, find out who put you on to Lant early. And that was the key. The final lock, the final key to the puzzle was when we asked our good detective to call in his favors and find out who was leaking information about Lant. Remember, that was here. And I feel pretty good about this. We said, probe for any anonymous sources trying to put the blame on Lant. This was our insight, that they were investigating Lant before the arson. And I wanted to know who, I thought someone was trying to leak information to get the suspicion on him early. And that would be a key. And in fact, that was the key, because we just got it in the last letter. He called in his favors, and he found out that it was Cunningham, who's supposed to be his best friend, who was really leaking all along. And this is the, what's the phrase? This is the cement. This is the, what's the phrase for the thing that is the final straw that breaks the camel's back? The final lock. There's some phrase. Smoking gun. This is the smoking gun. Yes, this is the smoking gun. All right. So this PI thinks pretty highly of himself. He imagines himself in a movie, but yeah, he's got the goods. All right. So there's our smoking gun. We know it's Cunningham, but now we've got a funny moment. Debbie says we should tell the police to arrest both Jimmy and Mrs. Lant, question them. No. It's not time to arrest him yet. No, it's not time to arrest him yet. Okay. Look at our first letter. We need proof of the means, motive, and opportunity. All right. And then we got a little scene. He told us, Michael Lant told us about his path home. We might want to trace that out. But what am I thinking of? Think for a second. We need evidence. We need evidence. Now, there's two things that happened. Well, the missing shoes are not missing. They were found in Michael Lant's apartment. So I don't think that we're going to get that. But there's two things that happened today. Well, one thing that happened today and one thing to remember that points to what we need to do next. Now, who can think what I'm thinking? There was one description and then one other bit of information when you combined make very clear what we need to do. Who can think what I'm thinking? Fingerprints on the shoes. No, our guy's too clever. He's not going to be leaving fingerprints on the shoes, I don't think, although that's a clever idea. I mean, yeah, let's remember to mention that. Harry says, we need evidence tying Jimmy to the fire starter material. That's a very good point. Ask about the rope. In fact, we now have someone very specific to ask if they remember. In fact, we may be able to get a picture of Jimmy Cunningham to bring to the hardware stores. That's a very good observation. What else? Okay, we got two great ideas here. One, check the shoes for fingerprints. He might not have even thought about fingerprints on the shoes, and patent leather, that would leave fingerprints. So actually, that would be a very good way to catch a fingerprint. So actually, that's a very good idea from Kirsten, although he might have thought about that. And Debbie reminds us we should go back to the hardware stores we know about, ask about the rope. In fact, now that we have a prime suspect, we could bring a picture of Jimmy Cunningham to show to the clerk. What else, though? There's something else that I was thinking. We need to know if he was having an affair. We would like to know if the wife was having an affair. That would help. I think we could probably get her to confess. Maybe we send the top PI to talk to her. If anyone's going to spot whether the dame had an affair and was lying, that's our PI. So I think that's not a bad idea to send our PI guy. Did we ever find out who was watching the house? I believe that's going to be our NYPD detective who was watching the Lant house. I think that's highly likely. It's that, or it was Cunningham to check when Lant was going to leave. But since that person was looking at the house even when Lant wasn't there, I think, well, he could have been watching to see when the wife would leave so he could get in, but I suspect it was the detective. Debbie says, ask the detectives if they saw Jimmy at any point. I don't think that's going to be that helpful to us. But I have another idea. I'm waiting to see if the channel thinks of it too. I mean, we haven't wrapped up, we haven't got a solid evidence about stock market manipulation. It's possible there's none. It's totally possible there's none. I think there's reason to believe, though, that Jimmy Cunningham, that there was stock market insider information and that Jimmy Cunningham is in on it. But I don't know exactly how to resolve that. We'll talk about that later a bit, but I have something else in mind. All right, let me see if I can jog your memory. Cunningham gave him copies of the ticker tape, maybe not the real info. That's possible. That's certainly not what I was thinking. All right, let me show you what I was thinking. First of all, well, let me show you it in parts and see if you can think what Macon is making a good point that I want to come back to. Okay, so I want to point out something. Here's Alice knocking on the door of Jimmy Cunningham. Okay, she shows up. He's a bit nonplussed. He's a bit shocked that she's there. And he's acting a little sketchy. Right? He says, sorry, I wasn't expecting a young lady. Come on in. He's got this cologne. I don't know what that's about. Except that he's trying to woo some woman. Oh, hold on. Holy shit. Did you notice that? It just occurred to me. Holy shit. I didn't even see it the first time. No, it's not to hide the smell of the smoke. It's not to hide the smell of the smoke. Holy shit. It just hit me. It just hit me. Mrs. Lant is visiting. That's exactly right. Holy shit. Boy, that, yeah. Now the whole chat is saying it. Yeah. Mrs. Lant is bringing the kid, and that's who he was expecting wearing cologne. Holy shit. That's 100% confirmation of our theory that he wants the wife. How good is that? How good is that? Okay, this isn't even what I was looking for, but wow. Waiting for the wife. Okay. It's not that the affair is ongoing. We don't know that, but he wants her. He wants her. Yeah, okay. That is so good. He's surprised. I wasn't expecting you. And he's wearing cologne. Look at that. How good a clue is that? How well written is that? I want to point out something because this is something that has occurred to me in the past in terms of, this will make a little side note here about writing a mystery. And this is a perfect example of it. This is a little trick that really works well. And I want to point it out. If you're writing a mystery, I want to point out why this works so well. And it's the reversal, it's the inverting of order that makes it work. If we had first read that Mrs. Lant is coming over, and then we read this, we would have been able to connect the two. We might have seen it the first time, oh, she's coming over, he's wearing cologne. The reason why this is such a devious little clue that we only spotted because we came back to it recently is that you read this and you can't give it significance. It has no significance just when we read it. Alice notes it. She doesn't like it. it's a little bit memorable, but because we have nothing to hook it onto, it doesn't stick. Then she just happens to run into Mrs. Lott, who's going to drop off the baby. Because of the order of these two things, we don't connect them. And that's a very effective mystery clue mechanic trick to sneaking in a clue past the players. It's only having both of these and then coming back that we're able to connect the two. But wow, is that, like, when you see it, right? Like, it's so clear now that that's what's happened. It's so clear that he wants the wife now. Boy, that is sweet. All right. This isn't even what I wanted to show you, though. But boy, that's a good moment. All right. So what I wanted to point out is this part. He's acting sketchy this whole visit. And he seemed to be a little preoccupied on his walk over to the dining room, like he was looking for something. And he's expecting the wife. Maybe he's just trying to make sure he hasn't left out anything that maybe he wanted the wife to see or whatever. But okay. So here's, let me show you and see if you can guess what I was thinking in terms of what for us to do next. Let's look at our first letter. And let's look at the people that Wiggins said we have available. Duddy Brooks is an unsavory character. You can hire him if you don't mind his way of getting things done. He served time for burglary, but he boasts a clean record. And then we've got a Buster Keaton impersonator. So if we think Jimmy Cunningham is our guy, then it seems to me there's a fairly good chance that there's evidence in his apartment that would lock us in to get proof. And maybe get proof that he is involved in the insider trading as well as the arson. Maybe he's got more of that rope that the arson was used. Maybe he's got insider information, proof, etc. So I'm thinking, what I was thinking is this might be the time to send this guy into that apartment while Jimmy Cunningham is away. I don't think it's that big of a risk for us. Kirsten says, if Jimmy has keys for Watt's place, maybe vice versa. That's a good point. We might even have his key. But to get his key would be to talk to the wife and ask for it. And I think we're all in agreement that the wife is probably not in on this, but let's not 100% rule it out. I think it might be dangerous for us to let her in on something. Debbie says, what would we expect to find in Jimmy's apartment? Well, we could find evidence of the arson stuff, receipt for gas canisters, receipt for rope, extra copies of the rope. We might find evidence of the insider trading information. If he is, there's a good chance that he's got that information. So regarding the wife, and does she maybe have a key for Watt's place? What I would say is, let's say we're 90% sure that the wife's not involved. I think it would still be a mistake to underestimate her and tell her our theories of Jimmy Cunningham, because if that 10% is wrong, she would go right to him and tell him everything. So let's go back to this letter for a second and highlight any other details. So I'm going to note here, I wonder if he's hiding something. Remember, we want proof. We need proof. Means, motive, opportunity. All right. So he's acting very fishy. Comment about hand signals. I think a whole thing about it, but that's all red herring, I believe. And then I think it's still an open question whether there really is any insider trading going on. It's clear Jimmy Cunningham has encouraged this whole thing, probably started the whole feud between Hamoud to begin with. But okay, let me make a case here. Yeah, Marco says Cunningham's also trying to get information from Alice about what Maggie told him. So let me point out something here. You could make the case, hey, maybe there is no insider trading. Maybe this is purely about Cunningham coming up with a scheme to get rid of Michael Lant. But I think he's gone to the trouble to kill Hamoud and his wife. I think, I mean, that is really nasty. I don't think that's just about framing Michael Lant. It would be easier to just kill off. If you're going to kill people, you might as well kill Michael Lant. So I think there is an insider trading going on, and Hamoud is involved, and Jimmy Cunningham is killing two birds with one stone. He's getting rid of the person who could tell on him, and he's getting Michael Lant framed at the same time. So if that's right, we still have to find evidence that Jimmy Cunningham is involved in this insider trading. He knows this woman. He's friends with her. So I think he might be getting information from her. They're all friends with the card game. They may all be involved in this scheme, but I think that's another reason to search Jimmy Cunningham's home. We have the way to do it fairly easily, and I think we might be able to get evidence not only that he's involved in the arson, but that he's involved in this insider trading scheme. So there's that. In fact, we might even, when we send the guy to break in, like he was looking for something, I'm going to say, like, tell this guy to look here too, not just in the bedroom. Maybe I'll put my F follow up. Okay. He's trying to get information from Alice about who she might have talked to, because maybe he's worried that this woman would have said, like, oh yeah, I give Jimmy Cunningham information, but luckily he hasn't gotten that. You could, if we were going to tell the police evidence, we might also tell police to ask Margaret what info she shared with Cunningham. I think they're all involved with it. Okay, he says, I've got to get going. He's trying to get rid of her so that he can meet the wife. Good for you, he says. Jimmy walked me downstairs. He walks her downstairs and he pushes her out so he can meet the wife. Okay, anyway. He's watching Susan again while I visit Michael. And he said he needed to talk about something. Yeah, he wants to ask her out. He wants to be her shoulder to cry on. This is another clue that she's not involved in this, right? Because she wouldn't mention it like this. She's being honest. She's saying, he said he needed to talk about something and wanted me to come over. So yeah, she's not involved. Wife not involved. That seems very clear to me. This is not the kind of thing you say when you're involved. But I do think she had an affair with him in the past. Okay, now I want to follow up on this. This is a good scene. He's like, if the police have a warrant, I'll give you the information. Our guy's like, well, that doesn't help. Okay, Jansen has no information from us as far as I can tell. Now, here's our hard-boiled guy. Let me just see. We had a couple of interesting points. Where were you? He says the other table was already cleared out. Me, Hamoud, Hartman, Jansen, and the bartender, and the guy asleep. Who's our guy? Same table as before. I was upset. I went straight to my office. I went straight to my office. And then he gives us this whole route. I guess we're going to retrace that route, but I'm not sure why that's important other than if Jimmy Cunningham is watching him. I saw a guy take out his trash on the right a block or two before the police station. I didn't see any cops out front. It was late. This is kind of weird. Is this all important? I don't know. We're going to look at the map and retrace it. But basically, the door's right there. I have an office on the second floor. There isn't anyone there. Straight to my office, flipped on the light. I think this is just a suggestion that Jimmy Cunningham could see when he was working at night. Right? It sounds like you take a right, the door's right there, an office on the second floor. I wonder if he's saying that basically when he's working late at night, the guy could see that he was Jimmy Cunningham could see that he was in his office, and this would be the perfect time to commit the arson because he wouldn't have an alibi, right? There's no one there on Friday nights. It's the weekend. I think this is going to be Jimmy can see he will have no alibi. So I think that's the significance of this. And then he says, Jimmy has our spare key. I think that's going to be the significance of this. We might want to look at this on the map compared to where Jimmy Cunningham lives in case Jimmy Cunningham is one of these guys taking out the trash. But I think this is what we got here. Okay, so the chat is not talking about my great theories. They're talking about their own. So let's see. I'm a little worried for Maggie. He might do something to her. I think he has both motives. If it was just an affair, he could have done it to the husband, not this other family. That's what I'm saying. Debbie says, the other reason why I think we should get the police involved at this point. I love how Debbie takes this role-playing seriously. It's not just about investigating. It's that people could be in danger. I love that. Kirsten says, I agree we can speculate, but searching his home could give us the answers. Perry says, financial fraud would have to be significant to justify arson and double murder. Does Cunningham have an alibi? I don't think he will have an alibi, and he's a single man. He doesn't have anyone to answer to. Macon says, as one action this week, we can probably find the guy who took out the trash to help alibi our client. I don't think that's going to do it. I don't think the person taking out the trash is going to recognize him, and he would have just seen him for a minute anyway. Debbie says, I think it's more likely just the affair, to be honest, and that it's still active. People in love can do crazy things. I don't think it's active. I don't think the way she would say he wants to talk to me about something doesn't seem right, but I agree we can't rule it out. Debbie says, I don't think they conspired. It's just Jimmy. If he killed Lant's wife would be mourning him for years. Different if he's arrested for a brutal double murder. Interesting. Kristen says, if Cunningham is involved in the financial fraud, he wouldn't give copies of the ticker tape to Lant. He could give fake copies or copies that implicate someone, or they're pointless. The ticker tapes are pointless. The info about borrowing the stocks didn't make sense, so I think the copies were not genuine. I think the copies do. I think that the insider trading does make sense. But okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Let me just make sure I've got all the evidence that we want to give the police here. He talks to Lant. Lant gives him his route. He says about the spare key. Jimmy was encouraging me, didn't judge me. He admits the part about how the card game, why he wanted to investigate it, is it's about reputation. I think, remember Wiggins says, I want you to wrap up the card game too. We also need some resolution of the Lant-Hamoud feud that would help restore his reputation. So I think we're getting the clarity here, and we know probably Jimmy Cunningham spread all the rumors and got it started. So I think we're done with the feud part. I think we figured that out. He's genuinely sorry. I should have been at home. He talks to the guy and gets Cunningham. Okay, so I think maybe what we'll try to do now as our final thing here is map out this route and try to see if anything jumps out at us. All right, so here's our map for Manhattan. Everything in this case is happening down in the financial district, FD. So let us go to the financial district here. All right, let's take a close look here before we retrace this map. What have we got? We've got Wall Street, and we know, let's get stuff on our map here. We know that on Front Street was the arson fire, 160 Front Street. So what's the best way to do this? I'm going to write down our places of interest. We've got 160 Front Street is where the arson and the Hamouds were, right? And then I want to put on this map where Michael Want's house is. And I want to put where Jimmy Cunningham's house is. And I want to put where Michael Want's work is. And then I want us to retrace the route of Michael Want. Which I guess we also need to know where the bar is that they were playing at. I don't think this is going to give us that much information, but let's see what we can do here, just for fun, because it's not often that you get a chance to use this kind of spatial stuff, and the channel is talking about theories. That's good. It gives you time to talk about that. I'll respond to that in a second. Okay, so Michael Want tells us what he does when he leaves the tavern. Did you encounter it? He says, I walked out the door on the corner of Broad Street and Pearl and headed north on Broad. Okay. Let's get some cubes here. Normally I would use stickers, but I've discovered that stickers on my inkjet printed paper leave a mark. All right, so he leaves Broad Street and Pearl. Where is Broad Street and Pearl? I don't know the financial district all that well. I mean, I've been there plenty of times in real life, but not comprehensively. Okay, so here's Pearl Street, going all the way up here. And then here's Broad Street. Okay, so that's the tavern. Tavern is at Broad Street and Pearl. Okay, he walks out here. He heads north. Well, he heads north up Broad. So Broad Street and Pearl cross this way. So he starts heading up this way, which is the direction that's pretty close to his home, because I thought the guy who was following at his house went this path too. I'm pretty sure when Alice found that guy watching the house, he also went this way. We should see if, well, okay, anyway. He goes up Broad Street, headed north on Broad. He sees a couple people. He's not focused on them. A guy's taking out his trash on the right, a block or two before the police station. Here's the police station. So he's walking up. He sees someone taking out their trash here or so. He continues. He doesn't see any cops at the police station, he says. It was late. The front door to Irving Trust is on Wall Street. So he walks all the way up to Wall Street and he gets to Irving Trust. Let's get out our reverse directory and find it this way just for fun. We could look up Irving Trust, but we can also find it this way. So here's our financial district. Looks like Irving Trust should be at 41, 44, 56, or 57. So let's just find it this way for fun. So 41, 44, 46, 47, 56, 57, 56, 57, bank, Irving Trust. There it is. Irving Trust, 1 Wall Street in the 55 block. So Irving Trust is actually here somewhere on 1 Wall Street. He comes out of the bar, Pearl and Broad. He walks up and he goes to his office where he can be seen out the window. No one else is there. Okay. So I think that's the main significance, is if someone was walking by, they would see it. But now let's try to map out the other places. 160 Front Street, which is where the Hamouds live. I mean, maybe this is just wasting time and we should be thinking about what to do, but I do want to do this just because it's a little fun when you get a chance to do this spatial stuff. So Hamoud is 160 Front Street, which is in the 35 block of the financial district. So the Hamouds are over here. Bar is here. He walks straight up, and then he's at his work on 1 Wall Street in the second floor window. The arson is here on 160 Front Street. There's Front Street. And we know it's on the 35 block, according to our directory. Now, want. This. Michael Want is on 1 Water Street in the 100 block of the financial district. So that is right here, actually, behind him. And we're told that Cunningham lives in the same complex. Right around the corner from the Watts in the same building. New York Plaza is just a name for the complex near the southern tip. So somewhere in this area is Cunningham's building. So maybe the guy we saw walking was, then a previous letter was Cunningham, but I don't think this route helped us figure out anything. All we know is that our guy left from the bar and goes up to work here. And if Jimmy Cunningham was waiting for him outside, he would have seen him walk to the bar, to the office, knows he has no alibi, diverts, starts the arson, knowing that he's alone in his office and won't have a good alibi. So I think that's all we can get from this path. I don't think anything else is, I don't think we've got any other clue. As far as witnesses, that's not going to help him. So I think it's just a good excuse for Cunningham to follow him and know that he'll have no alibi. All right. So let's check in with the chat and then let's figure out what we want to do here. It is interesting that Debbie thinks that the wife is involved. We should have a bet. Everyone should get on the record whether you think the wife's involved in having an active affair, in the murder, etc. Logan says, I'm a bit behind, but if we burgle the apartment, the evidence wouldn't be admissible. He could look around inside, but don't take anything. Look, this is our film noir 1940s. If we get some evidence, then we just drop it off anonymously to the police. They can use it. Things are not as strict as in current times. And maybe we don't even have to bring it in. We just tell the police where to look. Harry has some doubts that the fraud is related to the exchange at all. As far as we know, the affair is just a fantasy in the mind of Cunningham. It's possible, but the wife sounds a little sketchy when Alice asks her how well she knows him. Debbie says, I think Mrs. Want is or was involved with Jimmy somehow due to her being so cagey about discussing with Alex. I agree with that. Macon says, a couple of Kirsten gems have failed to make it to the top messages. I should be seeing all the messages, but you let me know, repeat, if there's anything that I haven't mentioned. I'm not sure we should assume the guy watching the lot place was definitely a cop without confirming it. Well, it could be Jimmy, but it doesn't really help us either way. Did Lant suspect an affair? No, the Lant has no idea that there's an affair. How old is this baby again? Could she have had an affair but ended up pregnant by the husband, elected to stay with the baby daddy? I don't think we have any evidence about the baby not being Michael Lant's. Perry says, I don't think the arson is to cover the affair and set up Lant. Yeah, I don't think the arson isn't to cover up the affair. The arson is to frame Michael Lant, but I think he's killing two birds with one stone. I think he's trying to hide some insider trading and get rid of Michael Lant so that he can have the wife. All right, so let's decide what to do. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, but if you want to, we'll refine it over the next couple of days. So if you have some more ideas, you can post them as a comment on this video or come into the Discord. We'll refine this thing in the next couple of days and then submit it. But, okay, I want to send the burglar to burgle. Okay. Carefully burgle Jimmy Cunningham's apartment. And Alice told us where that is. Same building as lot. Building as lot. And I want to tell him, we have to tell him what to look for, right? We need him to look for rope. I guess what we're looking is for flammable rope, gas canisters, or receipts of same from hardware store. And we can even give him the names of the stores we suspect. We've got hardware and lumber, craftsman supply. This is our stuff here that Wiggins found out. J.M. Kohlheimer Hardware, Lower East Side Hardware Shop. And okay, I think the most likely insider trading information was for AT&T. So I think what we're going to, he's not going to know how to understand too much about financial records, but look for financial records trades regarding AT&T. What else could we have him look for? I guess if we think there's any chance that the wife is involved. Oh yeah, okay. Look for evidence of smoky, burned clothes, right? If he started this fire, there's a good chance he might have some signs of burning from an arson. And then I want to look for evidence, look for notes from Mrs. Lant. We should if we want to rule out the wife, this would be a way. Like if he found a love letter from the wife, then we would know the wife is more guilty than we think. May have to stake out Jimmy Cunningham's apartment for a while, right? Because he may be in his apartment for a while. We will pay for 24 to 48 hours surveillance. That's going to cost us a bunch, but I think we're willing to pay for it. Okay, so that's our burglar and what I wanted to look for, and maybe look around hallway to dining room cabinets, because that's where Alice said he was acting a little bit suspicious. Cologne covering up the smell of smoke. I don't think he's putting on the cologne for the smoke, but maybe that would make it so Alice didn't smell anything. It was a lot with a dagger through them. Didn't he leave before lunch? Yes, he left the tavern before lunch, but he could have been just waiting outside. Logan says if the apartment has obvious signs of being broken into, Cunningham could say it was planted evidence. Well, I suppose you're just saying maybe, must break in without being seen or leaving evidence of break-in, right? Okay, maybe you're just saying, let's make sure he knows you can't just bust down the door. He's a burglar. This is an apartment building. This is going to be easy for him to get in and out. All right, now, so that's that. Now, what about Alice? What do we want Alice to do? And who? Okay, so Roger Vernon, who's our main guy, we want you to visit the hardware stores. And then we've got this full list here. Visit hardware stores in area via Wiggins list. Ask about unusual. Ask if anyone remembers person recently buying flammable rope or gas canisters. Give them Jimmy Cunningham's description. Probably we're not going to have a photo, but we could have his description from Wiggins, from Alice. Get the description from Alice. Right? I guess what we're going to say is ask Alice for description of Jimmy Ask them if such a person bought those things. And when. Okay. I feel we ought to have a job for Buster Keaton impression. Okay. Wish we could get phone records. Do we have to get a warrant? Do we think Miss Want would confide in Alice? No, she wouldn't. But our hard-boiled detective could pressure her. And I think that might be what we should do. I think he could get the information out of her. I'm just a little nervous about that. But I think probably we should have Jackie Hardboil visit Mrs. Want and lean on her to confess affair with Cunningham. Make sure she was not involved in anything else more sinister. Find out when affair ended. If it's not, if it is, find out if affair ended and when. Why? Get any info from her implicating Cunningham. Okay, we're going to have to talk about if that's what we want, but I believe that's what we should do. But wait until we give the go ahead. Wait until Wiggins says, I don't know if we should tell this guy about the break-in. I'm a little concerned he's too up and up. Okay, so wait to do this. Don't visit before Wiggins. Don't visit until Wiggins says to. I'm going to have Wiggins, and then I'm going to leave a note for Wiggins here. Wiggins, don't give him the green light until Study Brooks breaks in, just in case she tells Cunningham. And then I guess maybe make sure she knows not to tell Cunningham anything. Okay. Harry doesn't want to do the break-in and wants us to involve the police. All right, but I'm calling the shots on this one. We're doing a break-in. Now, where are we going to send Alice? Help me with this. Okay. Oh, I want to make another note here. I want to make a note. Wiggins. Okay. Well, let's fill in Wiggins about eventual evidence for police. Check shoes for fingerprints of Cunningham. If you have photo of Cunningham, give to Roger Vernon for visiting hardware stores. What other evidence do we expect police to be able to Macon says, I vote we don't send Alice to talk to the psychopathic killer again. Well, I agree with that. And this guy could be dangerous. Maybe we should warn our guy here. The guy's breaking in. Note, Cunningham likely very dangerous. Now, is there anything else we want to tell the police to Cunningham won't have alibi for night of murder? So there's two things I want us to nail down. The first one is, I think we're very confident that Cunningham has done all this. And I think we're going to be able to get the evidence that he started the arson. But we don't have a great feel about the insider stock trading and who else is involved. It's not like everything with the losses seems like it's a group effort. So it would be nice to be able to lock this down. So this is our sort of final proof we expect to have. I'm not even sure we're going to tell Wiggins. But I think maybe our advice for the police are bring in the entire card game group, threaten them with accessory to murder of Hamoud, get them to flip on Cunningham. That's my suspicion, that they're all sort of involved. And then ditto, or Margaret Layton is going to get fired, I think. Get her to admit what she told Cunningham, if anything, because I think she's going to have told him some insider information. Maybe check if there is any life insurance policies on. Would he have a life insurance policy on the Hamouds? Probably not. It's possible. The theory about this not having nothing to do with insider trading There's two reasons we don't believe that. First of all, it's too convoluted to kill two people, the Hamoods, just to frame Michael Lant. You'd be much better off just killing Michael Lant if you're willing to be a murderer. And he was cagey about trying to get information from Alice about what Margaret Leighton might have told him. So I believe strongly that he's up to no good with Hamoud. I think maybe if this is sort of a final evidence follow-up. So I think we expect, well, he burned down Hamoud, but Hamoud office records may have some details of working with Cunningham on insider trading info, etc. All right, but let's not get too wrapped up on this. Let's figure out what we want Alice to do, because surely we want Alice to do something. What do we want Alice to do for us? I'm entertaining ideas. What do we want Alice to do for us? Oh, did I put the part about the fingerprints? Yes. I suspect we are going to find fingerprints of Cunningham on those shoes. The borrowing stocks all work. They've just dropped. In fact, not only have they just dropped, but the stocks have dropped, and we know they haven't been repaid yet. So now is the time when they sell them, they make their profit. So it's all completely consistent with the insider information about AT&T stock dropping. Now, I thought that we heard even information about when she talks to Cunningham, he tries to get information about it. She's a bit of an overshare. She probably told you about AT&T too. So it sounds like he's admitting that Margaret Leighton told him about AT&T. Alice says, do you know anything about that? He says, well, as you can see, it's been dropping all week. I think Maggie knows something about it. So that's the confirmation that Margaret Leighton knows insider information about AT&T, and she shared it with him. So he is profiting off that. Yeah, they are expecting this recent crash. This is the crash before the big crash, but AT&T is dropping, and it's with insider information about AT&T. So I think there's all that. Now, Victor is staying at the West Street Hotel, but we don't think Victor is involved in this, but someone could talk to him. Okay, I'll tell you what. We should talk to his son. The son might know that Cunningham and Hamoud were working together. Should we send Alice there? I think maybe that's where we send Alice. That guy's grieving for his father and mother who have been killed in a fire. He's not going to want to talk to anyone representing Michael Lant, but he would talk to Alice, and Alice will charm him. Macon says, put Alice on the hardware stores. Well, I would absolutely put Alice on the hardware stores, but I'm worried that's too many leads for her. That's the only reason I'm not sending it. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We are going to send Alice to visit Victor, but we don't expect much to come out of it. So we're going to do it like this. Okay. We want you to visit Victor Hamoud at the West Street Hotel, which I'm going to look up for us. In fact, it's the West Street Hotel. Let's take the opportunity to look up the yellow pages. Lots of hotels. We've got the West Street Hotel. Here it is. Can you see it? The West Street Hotel, 99 West Street, Financial District 21 block, 25509. Okay, so we want you to go to 2509. Be delicate. He just lost his parents in a fire. Explain that Michael Lant is innocent. Ask him gently about any communication his father might have had with Jimmy Cunningham or other insider trading possibilities. But be gentle about it. Make sure, I guess, like, get a feel if he, Victor, might know Cunningham. Let's make sure he's not working with Cunningham. Okay, then here's what we're else going to do. We're also going to say, if your father will permit it, and you have extra time, ride along with Roger Vernon to some or all of the hardware stores. And then we're going to make a note here. Ask Wiggins if Alice can accompany you. She is remarkably resourceful and has seen Cunningham and has met with Cunningham, so might be able to jar a worker's memory of seeing him. And we could tell Wiggins here, we are about to wrap up the case. We'd love if Alice was willing to do some extra leg work this week and accompany Vernon for a day visiting hardware stores, since she is the only one who has met Cunningham. Describe him well. P.S. Don't let Alice talk you into getting her any coffee. All right. Key points. Need to tie Jimmy to the incendiary materials. I think we're going to be able to do that. Need to know if he's having an affair with Lant's wife. Still don't have primary motive for killing the Hamoods. 3 is a big hole. I think we're going to get information about the insider trading, and we've got a good chance of picking that up with the burglary, and the affair. Our hard-boiled guy is going to get out of this woman. I'm confident. And then our alcoholic beat cop, we're just not involving. He's not reliable. Logan says, how hard would it be to turn this improv case into a standalone regular New York Noir case? I think I'm going to try to do that. But beyond that, I'm actually, that I want to make New York Noir support play-by-mail cases. So I think what I might be trying to do is turn this into a play-by-mail case for New York Noir, but I still need to write the software to support that. Another way to look at this financial insider trading effort that we believe Cunningham's involved in, if we can prove that he did the arson, which I think we will be able to easily, then maybe it's not that important whether we catch the insider trading part, right? Like, it's an extra motive, but we're going to be able to motive him out for the wife, and we're going to have such strong evidence, he'll probably admit to the insider trading. Maybe he'll get a lighter deal if he implicates the others. And when we start pressuring the others that they're involved in a conspiracy to murder Hamoud, they're going to be singing. They're going to be saying, look, we were just doing the insider trading. We didn't murder anyone. The stock market's going to drop. They're all going to lose money. So I think we're okay. All right. Well, we've played 2 hours and 15 minutes. We had a huge double length session today. Extremely satisfying session. Pretty amazing. Next week, will it be the final letter? Possibly. If you want to make any suggestions for our reply before it gets sent in, you can leave it a comment on this video or drop in the Discord. The real thanks here goes to Matt for writing this case for us. What a fun session. All right, I'll see you next time.